In this week's Bizline, Vietnam catches up with global ESG trends. And ESG key to attract sustainable investment capital. Hello and welcome to Bizline on VTV International. I'm Hoàng Hằng. ESG, short for Environmental, Social and Governance, has become a mainstream concept recognized as crucial for businesses both within Vietnam and globally. Consequently, it is no surprise that ESG remains a top priority for Vietnamese businesses today. Private enterprises in Vietnam are actively promoting their ESG principles, presenting an opportunity for the country to attract capital. Many foreign financial institutions and investors are increasingly focusing on investing in ESG-related assets that promise future resilience. However, the question arises, where do Vietnamese companies stand on their ESG journey, and how can they utilize ESG principles to attract future investments aligned with sustainability goals? In this week's edition of Bizline, we'll delve deeper into these questions. Join us as we explore what ESG entails and how Vietnamese businesses have embraced this journey in our upcoming video.
In recent years, there has been a remarkable shift in global business paradigms towards sustainability and responsible corporate practices. This transformation is encapsulated within the ESG framework, short for Environmental, Social, and Governance, which is a set of standards measuring a business's impact on society, the environment, and how transparent and accountable it is. As concerns over climate change, social inequality, and corporate governance have escalated, the integration of ESG factors into decision-making processes has gained unprecedented momentum worldwide, and Vietnam is no exception.
Any big investor, any stock-listed company across the world will already have to report to bigger or smaller scale ESG standards. 5 years ago, an investor came to Vietnam and he asked us, why should I come to Vietnam? Today, an investor comes to Vietnam and asks us, can you tell us what is the energy policy of your industrial zone? Can you tell us what kind of ESG principles do you apply?
A lot of international organizations that operate their business in Vietnam, that's one of the things they require for their vendors, for their partners, that have a clear measurement of how that organization pursue ESG and measure ESG so that they can become the vendors for those international organizations. So I think that may be the critical thing, the critical pillar of motivation for a lot of Vietnamese enterprises to start thinking about.
When done correctly, ESG enables businesses to tackle the biggest challenges of today and capture the best opportunities of tomorrow. However, ESG takes on different meanings for each organization given its broad spectrum of topics. And so, to fully realize its potential, the ESG concept must be aligned with an organization's strategy and help advance its business model.
Now, businesses in Vietnam have been paying more and more attention to environmental, social and governance strategies. But what exactly does that mean for firms who follow that path? We now talk with Mr. Phạm Hải Âu, Director of Risk Assurance Services, PwC Vietnam. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. Now, why has ESG become such a trend in both Vietnam and globally?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to distinguish two very important terms, sustainability development and ESG. First, sustainability development is a practice that operating the companies to meet the current requirement of the investor and the stakeholder without compromising the future ability to meet that again. So while ESG is a set of criteria with 3 pillars, environment, social and government, to evaluate the performance of the company. So in fact, we can say sustainability development is the purpose, while the ESG is the approach. So that bring the ESG is become more prominent and more standardized among the regions and countries. Recently, during the COP26, Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính had made a commitment that when we meet the net zero target by 2050. And also we commit that we'll reduce our methane emission by 30% by 2030. So with the commitment from the government like this, it's been translated into the own kind of like government action plans in terms of regulation framework, and against on the business, on the industry, we got the impact. So I think right now in Vietnam, the business is ready for the ESG journey.
Now, according to your findings, are more businesses integrating ESG into their business strategies and governance practices?
PwC launched the ESG readiness surveys. We surveyed the FIE, the Foreign Investor Enterprise. We surveyed the listed companies, and we surveyed quite a number of private companies in Vietnam. And the result is 60%. More than 60% of the companies have the ESG program. Interestingly, we got the high number of private enterprise and private companies. They really concerned about the ESG. However, for listed companies, around 58% still in wait and see. It seems really reflect the situation in Vietnam is that the business environment here, we need to wait a lot of instruction and regulatory framework. So people we wait for effective regulatory framework to comply with, rather than just like go in advance to be the leader in the ESG journey. Right now, the other country and region is go more advanced in Vietnam in request for the ESG standard. If Vietnamese business do not meet those requirements, we lose the market. If the business run the proper ESG program, they have increased their chance to draw attention for foreign investment in terms of M&A, or even for like bond. Just because the international investor now bring in the ESG criteria in their investment decisions.
As a home to more than 120 manufacturing companies, Deep Sea believes it is their responsibility to reduce environmental footprint and make a positive impact on the planet. They are committed to lead by example through building an eco-industrial park with high sustainability standards.
We have a project in which we try to recycle wastewater for use in industrial processes. We have put in motion a windmill inside our industrial zone, and that windmill then again supplies electricity into our own grid. Last year, we've submitted as the first and only industrial zone developer in Vietnam an integrated ESG report up to the standards by the metrics as prescribed by the European Union. So that means that we measure step by step all our consumables, that we measure as well what we undertake both environmentally, but also equally socially or from a governance perspective.
Meanwhile, Maven Animal Feed Factories has integrated ESG principles into its operations and business practices. The company recognizes the importance of sustainability and responsible corporate behavior in achieving long-term success while positively impacting the environment and society.
It's a business issue as well for us, as well as a sustainability issue. We have a number of systems in place in our operational areas, farms, feed mills, and other things. Also in our offices, we're very conscious about the use of electricity, for example. We try and minimize our carbon footprint wherever we operate.
ESG has gradually evolved into a success criterion for companies seeking capital from banks and domestic and international investment funds.
I believe today 3 out of 4 companies already take it into account, and I believe 50% will use ESG as a possible reason not to go somewhere. The lack of ESG might be not necessarily the only reason, but it will be one of the reasons. So there is a definite, very clear, straightforward trend for investors to value ESG performance.
You want to expand your client network at Boston or partner that set you to do bigger business with the bigger firms, meaning that you can achieve more revenues and therefore set your company in the better growth position in the future, not only in Vietnam but also maybe internationally.
In 2020, ESG impact funds received $51 billion in investments, accounting for more than half of all investments in a year. Many investors now believe that ESG criteria will be used to prioritize investment trends, and businesses that actively develop ESG strategies will have easier access to capital than others.
According to experts, proficient ESG implementation enables businesses to mitigate risks, enhance their business position and reduce operational costs, and have a better relationship with stakeholders. So do you agree with this statement?
Yeah, I do agree. ESG put the business in the question how they deal with risks. They deal with the physical risks because of climate change. They deal with the transition risks because a lot of requirement from regulatory perspective that they have to change in terms of the business model, human resources, and operating model as well. So with those requirements, they really need to invest. First of all, I say invest in the knowledge, because we need to catch up with the new information, new technology, and new regulation all over the world. The second one, they really have to invest in some kind of technology, in the digital transformation, or they have to invest in the new materials with the low emission index. So I see that is really bringing the benefit for the companies. And the companies, when they deal with the risks, that also bring the opportunities. If the business, they go in advance, they capture that, they can expand the business, their market, and their product.
How does ESG factor in attracting high-quality FDI businesses?
The Vietnamese government has made a commitment regarding the ESG support in terms of regulation framework, and also a lot of stimulus program. Right now, one of ESG criteria the business have to disclose is how much renewable energy that they consume to produce their product or provide a service. So if Vietnam, we don't have such things, it's less attractive for the FDI. In terms of the business in particular, if the Vietnam companies run the proper ESG program, they are bringing more transparency, because that for governance required for ESG. They also have to deal with transparent supply chain, and they have the clear target on decarbonization or renewable energy. So with that such own information, the responsible FDI will easy to invest, because they don't have to change the ESG mindset one more time. Everything is ready there. Just pour in the more fund and then just support in further for the company in Vietnam.
The transition towards ESG represents both risks and opportunities for businesses. Therefore, companies that embrace ESG principle must prepare for the risks and stand to gain substantial benefits. But overall, greater effort is needed among Vietnamese private enterprises to commit to ESG matters.
While companies in Vietnam are making progress in their ESG journey, there is still a significant gap between expectations and actions. These include a lack of awareness and understanding of ESG principles among businesses and investors, inadequate legal and regulatory frameworks, and insufficient resources and infrastructure. Notably, approximately 20% of Vietnamese companies, particularly SMEs with fewer than 200 employees, currently lack ESG commitments or plans.
I think the ones that is being left out are the local SMEs, the local small size companies, because most of them, for example, don't even have a clear understanding. So I think they're the ones who are most vulnerable, and they're the ones that needs to be addressed by the government or by some of the international or local regional NGOs, to really adjust or adapt in terms of training, capacity building, etc.
Barriers to implementing ESG persist, such as increased costs for end customers, potential profit reduction, and the proliferation of laws on supply chain sustainability globally in recent years. This trend compels companies operating in Vietnam to ensure compliance with the legal frameworks across their operations, subsidiaries, and supplier networks throughout the value chain.
If you have a customer today in Europe, that customer under the laws of ESG-driven measures will have to measure not only inside his own factory, but inside his Vietnamese supplier factory, what are the applicable standards, how they treat their employees, do they source the products from sustainable sources, do they have certificates of origin? All of this 3 years ago was unthinkable. So I believe that the future will prove to everyone ESG is huge, but actually it is already huge today.
As governments and international organizations enact stricter regulations regarding supply chain sustainability, companies must ensure the inclusion of manufacturers at all levels in their sustainability initiatives. This inclusive approach is essential for developing comprehensive supply chain risk management strategies in the future.
Now, given the substantial initial investment required by ESG initiatives, do you anticipate reluctance among businesses in Vietnam to engage in ESG practices?
We participate in some strategy workshop, and we do see that the ESG or sustainability development is unstoppable trend. So it means the market will be there. For the business, of course, the profitability, the return on investment will be the big question. So they cannot realize yet the revenue, the profit, but the investment is quite high right now. But the business, if they want to be the leader in their area, they have to think far. I mean, the strategy here is not 1 year business plan. That should be 5 or 10 years. That will reduce the total cost overall and bring in the profit in the long term, rather than look at the short term. Recently, in one PwC global survey for consumer, we see that interestingly that more than 80% of the consumer globally will pay attention to the product or service with ESG factor embedded. So I think maybe in terms of absolute figure, the investment, the cost may be higher. But when you invest on that, you will have better revenue. You expand the market. So at the bottom line, your net profit will be better.
Now, what policy should Vietnam enact to facilitate and incentivize business involvement in ESG initiatives?
First of all, regarding the environment, we have to deal with first is the renewable energy. We got the energy plan already. And in fact, right now, we know that many foreign investors would like to access to the renewable energy sources. However, right now they still have to run through the EVN. That's something that we need to change. So I think the purpose is right, but for the implementation, the government should work closely with the business association over the country and also update with the international trend just to make sure that we create the right regulation framework to protect the environment. Regarding the social, in Vietnam, we see that we got a lot of improvement regarding the labor conditions. Recently, we got the customer data protection. That is really the very good legal foundation. And for governance, for ESG program, there one important requirement is the reporting and disclosure of the ESG program. So without the proper standard, the company doesn't know how to report what they are doing. The key important that to bring in more transparency and disclosure regulation, and to increase up the quality of the listed company in the market.
According to a 2022 report by Bloomberg Intelligence, global ESG assets could reach $50 trillion by 2025. The trend toward investing in companies adhering to ESG standards is obvious. As such, enterprises must strike a balance between meeting short-term performance requirements and investing in longer-term ESG goals to ensure their long-term success.
I believe it will enable us to prove that economic growth can be sustainable. Perhaps the growth will be a little bit less fast, but in return, it will be a much better type of growth. But if we here in Vietnam would be the first to implement much more stricter ESG approaches, then perhaps it would be a differentiator. It would make Vietnam grow faster than all the other companies or countries that are today very slow in implementing.
In Vietnam, businesses are discovering that adopting ESG practices is becoming crucial for them in ensuring the long-term sustainability of businesses, a strategic imperative for survival.
We employ 2,500 people in Marvin, and each of them understands that they contribute to the ESG program. And our management teams have to understand that corporate governance is the key to all of that. So if you are constantly thinking about those things as you move forward, 5 years down the track, you will have a strong ESG component within your company business model that will stand you in very good stead as you move forward.
By adopting ESG practices, businesses in Vietnam can actively contribute to societal and environmental well-being, fortify their resilience, drive innovation, and elevate competitiveness. Acting as a catalyst for success, ESG benefits not just businesses but also governments and society at large, positioning those addressing sustainability and climate concerns today as leaders of tomorrow.
Now, what do you think are the primary drivers propelling ESG implementation in Vietnam in the future, in your opinion?
We got 80% of a company to participate in our survey, saying that the main driver for them is for keep their branding. And 68% stay competitive. It means they're afraid that if they do not engage in this program, they lose the market. They also seeing that the pool of funding is ready for the ESG. So they can utilize those resources just to support for their business strategy and expansion. The last one, that at the bottom line, it increased the company value. If the company is listed, that will be the capitalization value. We can say that is not the should or should not, is the must to go. And if the company really want to go further, they have to implement the ESG program.
With projections suggesting that global ESG assets are on track to surpass $50 trillion by 2025, how can Vietnamese companies and the government leverage this significant potential capital?
The ESG investment is a popular term for the investor in the world already. So it means right now the investor will put the ESG factors as one of the key assessment criteria, the same as the financial criteria before. So Vietnamese, our market expanding, and we will attract those funds if we're ready. So I mean, the company really have to show up that they're willing to go, and they're ready, and they will use properly the new mobilized fund just for the ESG purpose. And at the end of the day, the sustainability development of the companies will show that they will survive, they will develop for quite a long time. Now is the journey. The Vietnamese company should start to run, and however, they should equip themselves with the proper knowledge. And the leader of the business should really have the clear vision and translate that into the business strategy with the ESG factor in all of their decisions. The risk will be prominent. To deal with the risk requires a lot of resources, but the whole market is willing to deal with that. So if we really commit we can go further.
Once again, thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you.
ESG creates winners among businesses, governments, and society. When done correctly, ESG enables businesses to tackle the biggest challenges of today and capture the best opportunities of tomorrow. By prioritizing environmental sustainability, social responsibility, and good governance practices, Vietnamese companies can drive innovation, attract investment, mitigate risks, and create long-term value for stakeholders and society as a whole. And on that note, we wrap up this edition of Bizline. For more content, or you can download our app VTV Go from App Store or Google Play for a lot more. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time.